Okay, we're live on Facebook. Good evening, Philippines, and good afternoon, Middle East. Good morning here in the US. Welcome back to our free lectures from 9.09. And for today's topic is listening. So let's welcome back Sir Philip. Hi, Sir Philip. Good evening.
Hello there. Thanks for having us back once
Yeah.
again. Hello.
Yeah. For those who's watching on Facebook, please tag your friends and just like our page and send us direct message to be added in our group chat. Okay, Sir Philip, I will give you the floor now.
Thank you very much. So, welcome, guys. This is the start of our listening series. For the next few weeks, we would be tackling different aspects of the speaking test for the IELTS. Oh, uh, before we continue, let me just adjust the settings here. There. So, if you have any questions, feel free to message them, to send them through the chat, so that we could all be, so that we could all share in the question. So maybe your question is the same as other people's question. So feel free to type your queries. So tonight we begin with a topic which is quite, which historically we at Niner have found to be very useful, which our students were able to leverage and generate so that they can perform better when it comes to their listening test. Now, who here have already taken their IELTS or maybe have already done a listening exercise? Yeah. Is there anybody here? Yeah, let's make this interactive. Has there anyone here who's already done a listening exercise at least? Let's have a show of hands. Anyone? It seems none. That's perfectly understandable. For some, the IELTS can be a little bit intimidating. But if you have done a listening exercise, or rather, when you do a listening exercise, you would find that it's actually not as easy as you probably thought it would be. Too many people, they underestimate the exam and or overestimate their own skills. And over the years, we at Niner have found that there are some common challenges that quite a lot of students and quite a lot of candidates experience. One of them is speed. If you do go to the IELTS website, there are some sample materials there that you can check out. And though the audio that you would find for the listening exercises, they are, if you really focus, they are understandable. But for those who would be trying the test for the first time, it may be a little overwhelming. Ang bilis niya, in a way. So the challenge there is that you can't really adjust the speed in your test. You can't tell to the person, hey, bagala natin siya. But rather, you are the one who has to adapt. You have to listen better. You have to do techniques and strategies so that you could focus more and be better able to receive the answers. So how do you do that? Tonight, we're going to be focusing on the use of keywords in the listening tests so that you can better prepare for the answer to receive the answers so that you can get a higher score. So what do I mean by this? So let's get started. Right. So a quick overview. When it comes to the listening test, there, at least when it comes to the IELTS listening test, there are 40 numbers. And though there are a wide variety of test types, such as sentence completion, map completion, multiple choice, etc., all of these questions would always have keywords that you would be that can serve as your anchors and your landmarks in order for you to know what to watch out for when it comes to the test. For example, let's have a simple question over here. What did Philip have for dinner? If you have this question, and let's pretend this is question number one, what would you say would be the words here that you think can be considered keywords? What ideas here do you think are central to the message of the sentence, or rather to what you're looking for in the question? Sabi ni Fatima, dinner. Sure, I agree. That's definitely one. Any other word here that you think is important? Marky, oh, there's no food. But you're right, dinner is food. But besides dinner, what else do you think is a keyword here in this sentence? Fatima says did. I guess that means that it's already over. Sure. Anything before that? Though? Yeah, Ninzi. Philip, grabe naman. Hindi ako important. Charot. Joke lang. So yeah, so it's important that you highlight as well whose dinner, who had the dinner, for example. Yeah, so good. Ninzi and Nix. So you will always be given time before the audio is played for you to pay it, to read the questions, and to highlight the keywords in them. If you're taking the paper-based test, feel free to underline, encircle, rectangle, triangle, or whatever the keywords. In the computer-based test, you will be given the opportunity to highlight. You can highlight them in yellow, for example, so that they stand out to you inside. The Ielts promise, and just like OET's promise, is that the keywords that you find in your questions always have a match in the audio 100% of the time. 40 out of 40 questions, there would always be a match. So that doesn't mean though that the keywords that you hear in the question will be the exact same words that you would hear in the audio. Maybe, but most of the time they would be what you call paraphrased. Let's write that down. Paraphrase. Does anyone know what paraphrase means? Does anyone know what paraphrase means? Kung nag-paraphrase ka, different words, but same meaning. Yeah, they would be like sort of like synonyms. No? Oh, Jazz, you're sending me direct messages in Zoom. Please do. There you go. Very good. You shifted it to everyone, so everyone can see what it is that you're writing. Correct, Victor. Same thought or same meaning. A huge part of doing well in your exam, whether for the IELTS or the OET, whether for listening, reading, writing, or speaking, it's really a matter of paying attention to our keywords. We cannot emphasize this enough. In fact, we highlight it all the time in all of our classes tonight. This is what makes the IELTS exam a high quality test, because there is always going to be a clear basis of why the answer is the answer. So in this very simple example, what did Philip have for dinner? Here it's clear that we're talking about Philip's dinner, and we want to find out what he ate there. Our main skill for tonight is using these keywords and in order to anticipate what the words you would hear would be. There is a technique what you call activating schema. Let's write that down. Could everyone write that down, please? Activating schema. Activating schema. Let's write that down. Activating schema. 2 words. Activating schema. Write it. Galaw, galaw. Activating schema. Type it. Activating schema. Come on, galaw. So you remember these things. Activating schema. Yeah, so what's that? What's that? What is a schema? Schema, I'm not sure if you've heard of the word before. It's called, have you heard of schematics, maybe? Scheme, maybe something like that. Schematics is like a diagram. Scheme is like a plan. So you get a schema is a term in neurolinguistics It refers to how every word or idea that we have in our minds, they are we never actually understand them on their own, but rather always together with other words. What do I mean? Let's have a quick example. Who here are okay? Let's have a quick show of hands. What's your job? Paramdam. Paramdam. Both in Zoom and in Facebook. Type your job. Type your job. Of course, if you have no job, I guess you can write you're on vacation, or maybe the last job that you had. Marky is a radiographer. Ada is a nurse. I'm a nurse too. Reina in Facebook is a midwife. Lexa is a nurse. How about the rest of you? Si Lorraine, medtech. Si Beyond, grateful, PT. Dania Lu Makaban is a dental nurse. Kate is a nurse. Michael Escobar is a nurse. Lynn is a nurse. Oh, there's so many nurses. No? So, but yeah, obviously, international. Yeah, so sorry. Of course, there's a lot of nurses. Net Castillo Dagalea, your supervisor. Victor is a nurse. So many nurses. There's a medtech. Joyce is a medtech. Cool, cool, cool. So let's start with something healthcare related. If I give you this word, diabetes. Diabetes. Can you give me words that come to mind if I give you the word diabetes? Classmates, what words come to mind if I give you the word diabetes? Marky, insulin, just blood sugar. Guys, diabetes. What words come to mind? And HGT? HGT? What's HGT? Oh my gosh, what's this? Ano yun? Ano yung HGT? Fasting blood sugar, blood pressure. Just RBS, high weight, okay. Hypo, hyperglycemia. Let's take a look at Facebook. Yeah, metformin. Walang kamatayang metformin from Christine and Beyond Grateful. Insulin, blood sugar, glucose from Joyce. Diabetic ketoacidosis from Lexa. Lifestyle, sabi ni Rowan. Oh, thank you, Jay. Hemoglucose test pala yung HGT. Huh? Right. That's the first time I've heard it called that. There's the DM1. Oh, type 1 and type 2. Sure. HbA1c. Chronic. Okay. Scary. Sabi ni Net Castillo Dagalea. Well, tama ka dyan. Diet, sabi ni Justin Joffertan. Disease, sure. Endocrine, okay. 3 Ps, okay. Polyuria, polydipsia, polyphagia. Just shortcutted to that, etc. Pancreas. Thank you. So clearly, ang daming laman ng inyong schema. Schema, again, is oh, okay. Lagyan natin ng very hungry dito. So schema is a word that a schema refers to all of the words that we associate with this idea. In this example, diabetes, ito yung mga lumabas sa brain natin. Let's come up with a different word. If I give you the word niner. Sige nga. Oh. Niner. What words come to mind this time? Niner. What words come to mind this time? Sir Philip. Review. Hope. Wow, hope. Well, you're not wrong. Excellent. Oh, niner. What words come to mind? Ielts, key to success. Yes naman. Passing, 9.0. What else? Top center. Sure. Top review center. English teaching facility. Wow, so many words. Unlimited. Wow, lifetime talaga. No? Number 1. Exams. Sir Erwin. Indeed. Okay. Sir Brian. There we go. Niner. What else comes to mind? The orange book. Ang walang kamatayang orange book. That's true. Success. Sir Neil. According to Rowan, orange. Branding kung branding. Success. Yeah. Anything else? Last 4. Heidi. Perfect score. Niner. What else comes to mind? Pioneer. Achiever. And finally, resourceful and free. Wow, grabe yung free. Enroll din kung kaya. No? Awardee, review materials. That's great. Now, let's compare it to this. If I give you the word Lenny. Oh, it is Wednesday today. If I give you the word Lenny, what words come to mind this time? I imagine it might be a little different. Vice President. My President. Lenny. Pink. Radical Love. Rose. Lenny. Rosas. Mutual. Mother. Pink Flower. Sabi ni Lexa Garcia. Anything else? Lenny. Yeah. Hope is hope here na ba? Not yet. Lenny. What else comes to mind? Dilawan. Sabi ni Justin. Dilawan. Woman. Powerful. Love. Laylaya. Yeah, mother's already there. I think, Marky. Liberal. Like the opposite of conservative. Care. Come on, what words come to mind? I'm sure words come to mind. Lenny. What other words? Lugaw. Ayan. Sabi ni Alan. Tortoshon. No? Lugaw. Equality. Okay. Bicolana. Smiling face. No? Wait, small letters. Integrity. Kakampings. No? All right. Cool. Let's try this. Yeah, lawyer. Yeah. Let's try this. Our last word. Let's try Marcos. I'm sure you guys have lots of opinions about this. Marcos. What words come to mind? President. All right. Excellency. Anything else? Marcos. Unity. Tax evader. Red. BBF. Reddish talaga. Okay. Gold. Yung Italiano gold ba yan? Diploma. What diploma? And Andrew E. Oh my gosh, nadamay si Andrew E. Power. Martial law. Saan to? Ilocano. Genius. Saan banda? Tiger of the North. Oh, okay. Tigre. Tiger of the North. Yeah, of the North. Trolls. Tony G. Sabay-sabay. Harvard. Harvard. Si Marcos, Harvard. Ano yun? Ano yun? Kristen Nova Gallardo. Imelda. Harvard. Oh, ill-gotten wealth. LOL. Oxford. Oxford? Ah, okay. Sandro. Oh my gosh. Seryoso tayo? Political repression. Sino si Diego Loizada? Uy, iPad. Sino si Diego Loizada? 30 million. Yeah. Political repression. Who's Diego Loizada? Oh my God, I have no idea who that is. Pahingi ng ingay. Ano yun? Gold. Fake diploma. 30 million. 17th president. Father. 204 billion. Political dynasty. It's still poor in the Philippines. Ang galing nyo naman. Walang nagbanggit ng 20 pesos. Lol. Yeah. So now so thank you for your contributions. No? So this is an example. So these are examples rather of scams. I invite you to examine pagdating sa diabetes, sa niner, for example, parang pare-pareho tayo ng naiisip. No? Wouldn't you agree? You know, it's the same. We're coming up with the same ideas. We're coming up with the same words. Agree? Yeah, parang pare-pareho. No? Paulit-ulit yung insulin, yung diet, yung glucose, yung polyuria, ganyan. However, ngunit subalit datapwat. No? Sa right side, si Lenny, Marcos, there's a lot more variants. There's a lot more differences. For example, bilangin natin yung mga positive kay Madam Lenny. What are the positive things here kay Lenny? I guess this. That's president, my president, pink, radical love. Wait, sorry. Not a good color. Let me try again. Oops. Oh, fine, I'll just use this. Vice president, my president, pink, radical love, rose, rosas, future, mother, hope, woman, powerful, love, laylayan, liberal. She is the chairman of the Liberal Party. Care, quality, Bulana, smiling face, integrity, conflicts. Negative words. Pinklawan, Dilawan, Gugaw. Yeah. How about Marcos? No, almost, okay, not quite. Positives for Marcos. President, excellency, unity. I guess red. Hindi ko gets yung reddish. Gold. I'm not sure whether positive or negative yung gold. Classmates, can you help me? In your opinion, itong si gold dito, is it a positive or is it a negative? Sorry, can you help me? In your opinion, ano yung gold natin dito? Do you think it's positive or do you think it's negative? Ada says it's negative. Net also says it's negative. How about kayo sa Facebook? Justin Hoffertan says negative. Nemo says negative. Nix and Renato Kabug say negative. Charles says negative. Okay, let's make it negative. Bokalan says positive. Okay, all right. Negative sabi ni Keja says. Okay. Okay. Funny. Diploma. I think that's a negative. Hindi ko get si Andrew E. Parang hindi yata positive or negative si Andrew E. Maybe it's like neutral. No? Maybe neutral. Power, I guess, is positive. Ilocano is, yeah, genius. Tiger of the North. Yeah, cool. Sino yung mga negative kay Marcos? Tax evader. Red. I know what reddish means, just. But I don't understand why it's related to Marcos. Gold, negative. Diploma, that is non-existent. Martial law. Trolls. Tony G. Sabay, sabay. Hindi ka gets yung Harvard, baka nalito lang sa Oxford, where hindi naman siya talagang graduate ng undergraduate degree. Harvard, ill-gotten wealth, Oxford. Si Sandro, guys, ito positive natin or negative? Can you help? I am conflicted. No? Si Sandro, ipa-positive natin siya or in-negative? Can you help me out? Anong boto natin? Sandro. Sandro. Nega, sabi ni Ada. Nega, sabi ni Nimong Sadia. Okay. Net says positive though. Glyza says positive though. Lexa says positive, but Jazz says negative. Oh, 3-3 na. Okay. So you see, there are some words that are... So therefore, you see that there are some words that are clearly positive and there are some words that are clearly negative. And some words are neutral. There is variance, there's discrepancy when it comes to these politically charged, emotionally charged words. However, when it comes to neutral terms like diabetes or niner, pare-pareho tayo ng naisip. Now, why do you think is that the case? Classmates, I mean, what do you think? How come when it comes to things like maybe pneumonia, tuberculosis, diabetes, hypertension, paracetamol, why do you think we think the same things? Why do you think pare-pareho yung laman ng schema natin? Niner, ganyan, Facebook. Why do you think that we associate these words with the same stocks, no? With the same groupings? And why do you think pagdating kay Lenny Marcos, iba-iba yung lumalabas sa brain natin? Some lean towards more positive for this person. Some lean more negative towards this person. Do you have any ideas? Well, let's do it this way. I'll give you one last word. English. Can you give me what you feel when you see the word English? What emotions do you associate with the word English? Stress, sabi ni Ada. Wow, okay. Sige. Understandable, totally understandable. Preparing for the exam can be a stressful experience. Okay, language, grammar, listen, speak, perfection. Wow, that's a high standard. World language, pressure. Here we go. English. What words come to mind? Gateway. Wow. Okay. USA. Nervous. Si Sarah Devanadera. Universal language. Global. All right. Communication. Read. Right. Vanny says. Ielts, of course. Challenging. Which words here do you think are nega? Nega si nervous. Negative si challenging. Negative si stress. Negative si pressure. Epistaxis. Lol. No? Why do you think do these feelings come up when you are thinking of English? Is it because you're preparing for an exam? Maybe, right? Your future is very much hooked on, it's very much dependent on how you perform in these tests. So you've gotta get it right. However, at the same time, some of these words and ideas are positive. You know, English, ano yan? Gateway yan sa US. Susi sa masaganang kinabukasan. Susi sa limpak-limpak na pera at salapi, right? Nick says it builds confidence. No? It's a world language. You get the idea. So how come some people have more positive ideas towards English, but some have more negative? Kunyari, if hindi ka nag-exam, you're just living your life, I'm not sure you're gonna feel as negatively maybe towards the exam as you otherwise would be. Kasi hindi ka stressed eh. So going back to the question, it's expensive to fail. That's true. But you know what's more expensive? Not trying. Because you miss 100% of the shots that you do not take. Tama? And the fact that you're here joining us now, tonight, or today, or this afternoon, means that you're interested in getting to the next chapter in your life, right? It's not going to be easy. The days, the weeks, the months of preparation, they will be challenging. But if there's anything I'd like to share, they would always be worth it. As evidenced by the happy lives that former students now live. Na nahirapan din sa exam, just like you. They who also attend free sessions like this, trying na makasingit ng learning during their free time. So I just like to take that moment to acknowledge and affirm your efforts kasi hindi naman talaga madali ang magkaroon ng mas magandang buhay. Because anything worth doing is worth doing well. Yeah, amen talaga. Amen talaga. So I'm glad that you're here. I honor and affirm and appreciate your time and effort. So going back. So as some of you mentioned earlier, bakit pare-pareho yung naiisip natin when it comes to diabetes, Niner, but differently to more emotionally charged topics like English, Lenny, Marcos, Roland Salcedo, and Beccalan Florence mentioned common knowledge. And that is true. When it comes to diabetes and Niner, we encounter the same materials, right? It's part of the same textbook. It's part of the same, we read the same textbooks, rather. We watch the same websites when it comes to Niner. Hopefully you've watched our videos in YouTube, where we present quite a lot of materials for everyone to have a better idea of the different English tests out there. So, pareho ng pinagagalingan. Ngunit subalit datapwat, here's more emotionally charged words like Lenny or Marcos or 20 pesos per kilo rice, mga ganyan, or mga ganun, red tagging, mas iba yung ating mga materials. After all, yeah, perhaps of your background knowledge as well, that's true. You are familiar how social media, the algorithm of social media is tailored. What's a better word for tailored? Customized, depending on your behavior. Yeah? Kunyari, like mo si Lenny, anong sa tingin mong ipapakita sa'yo ng social media? Or positive words, positive news, or negative news? Classmates, if you like, or heart, or support, yung mga pro-Lenny stuff, ano sa tingin mong ipapakita sa'yo ng social media? Ng Instagram mo, ng Twitter mo, ng Facebook mo? Positive for Lenny or negative for Lenny? Positive. Indeed. No? So it's what you call a positive feedback loop. Positive feedback loop is when you're given more of the same thing. No? So the problem there, of course, is that we tend to have very different versions of reality. And when it comes to the IELTS, it means that hindi ganun ka-wide yung mga ideas that we end up reading about, that we end up connecting our ideas to. So that's problematic. So going back to listening, how does this help you perform better in the IELTS listening test? you will always be given time before the audio is played for you to look at your question, to read your questions, and to highlight the keywords there. You activate schema by letting your brain know na ito yung ating pag-uusapan. The topic is about Philip, the topic is about dinner. So brain, start thinking of words that are related to Philip or to dinner. This allows the brain to better anticipate what is going to happen next. And therefore, mas madali niyang masasalo yung mga ideas, yung mga answers that you would be hearing in the audio. Example, if you inform your brain, now, hi, brain, I would be encountering, if you inform your brain that the topic would be diabetes, what do you think would your brain, what do you think has a higher probability of coming up? What do you think has a higher probability of coming out? Blood sugar or, I don't know, Ielts, classmates? If you inform your brain that the topic is diabetes, which do you think has a higher chance of coming up next? Blood sugar or Ielts? If you inform your brain that diabetes is, the topic, what does your brain anticipate? What do you think has a higher chance of being mentioned next? Blood sugar or Ielts? Of course, blood sugar, right? Of course. So that's the rationale. Ganun yun. That's how it works. Because like tens and thousands of words in English, but in order for you to function, your brain prioritizes some words over others because they're more likely to appear. Something like that. So that's the whole point of activating schema. When you pay attention to a word, this whole thing, boom, these words, they rise to the surface of your consciousness for easy retrieval. So this means that no matter how fast the audio is, if you properly activate your schema during the time that you are provided, this means that you have a much better chance and you're better prepared to catch the answers, because the potential answers, which will be paraphrased from the keywords in the task description, is something that you would have been looking forward to. It's something that you would have been anticipating. And believe me when I say that it makes a world of difference. Because there's so much English in the IELTS audio. English, 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 English. It's a tsunami of English. It's like a tidal wave of language. And it's sometimes easy to drown in all of this English. So it's important for you to know, therefore it's important for you to use these keywords as landmarks, as anchors, so that you're not lost. Because even if, for example, you don't know so many of the words, or you lost track of what's going on in the audio, but you're able to focus your attention to the keywords, then you know that where the keywords are, the answers are nearby. So it's all a matter of being able to identify the keywords, activating the schema, and then matching the keywords in the question to the keywords in the audio so that you know where to focus your attention. Now, I know this is easier said than done sometimes. Sir, how do we make sure that may laman yung schema namin? How do we make sure that our schemas have words in them? Because sometimes there are no words in your schema. It's because you encounter an uncommon word or a vocabulary item that you honestly just never saw in your life. You never have seen in your life. Let's have an example. What would be a good exotic word to give you? Okay, how about this one? Let's see if anyone knows this word. Oricon. Oricon. Oh. What words come to mind if I give you the word archon, archon, yeah, archon, anything? Archon, archon, words? Nothing, nothing, walang laman, because you maybe have not encountered this before. No? So an archon is something like a leader or a judge in ancient Greece. Ah, very good, Nix. No, Athens. Okay, not bad. At least someone has an idea. Um, you can Google it later. Um, I'll give you another one. Mm, nah, that's not. You get the idea. When it comes to the IELTS, you don't have an idea which topics would be mentioned. It's really anything under the sun. For the first two parts of the IELTS listening test, the topic would be social. So part one would always be between two people, a dialogue in a social setting, maybe two friends who are having a chat at a cafe. Or maybe you're calling the airport to report your stolen luggage. Maybe you're calling a hotel to book a room, things like that. Second task there, the second part in listening is when you hear somebody who is speaking alone, somebody who is having a monologue and just giving you information. Now, whether there's one person or two people speaking, the situation would be social. So more everyday, more relatable content. However, parts three and four are academic situations, training setups. For example, you are reserving a room in a library for a study session. Or perhaps you're having a discussion with your thesis mates regarding different titles of your research. Or maybe you're listening to a lecture of veganism or vegetarianism, things like this. So there's a greater probability in sections three and four, compared at least to sections one and two, for you to encounter vocabulary that you haven't seen before. So what do you do about it? Because it's hard for you to pay attention, it's hard for you to sustain attention and follow what's going on in the audio if you don't know the words that are being used, right? So what do you do? What do you think should you do in order for you to expand your vocabulary? What do you think should be done? What do you think can you guys do so that your schemas are more enriched, so there are more ideas in these schemas of yours? Correct, Marky. It's really a matter of reading. There is no substitute to that. No shortcuts. Correct, Christine. You just have to read. Importantly, you have to see words in action. It's nice, of course, for you to use resources such as dictionaries, thesaurus, things like that. However, to understand the word and to truly know when is it okay to use it, when is it okay not to use it, etc., it's nice for you to see these words in action. Because when you see them in action, you can tell which words are supposed to go together with them. In the example of diabetes, Niner, Lenny, and Marcos. So in order for you to have a much easier time in the IELTS listening test, please pay attention to the keyword. Well, first of all, please read so that your schemas are enriched at may laman sila. Now, when you're taking the test itself or an exercise, please encircle, activate your schema, look at it, say it softly to yourself, encircle it. More stimuli, more retention. The more ways that you try to pay attention to a certain stimulus, the more chances of actually remembering them in the future. Something to keep in mind. So read up, pay attention to the keywords, activate schema, so that you know what to match for when these keywords are paraphrased in the audio, so that you know that the answer is somewhere there. Do you get it? Do you get it? So some people are overconfident. They don't highlight the keywords during the time that's provided to them. Please do not be foolish. Don't be like that. the the more steps you take to ensure that you remember the keywords, the better. This helps address our problems with vocabulary, and also it helps address our problems with speed. Because if you have a pretty good idea what words to anticipate, then you can much easier get the correct answer. So, what is our question? What did Philip have for dinner? Let's have a sample. So let's try to answer this question. Let's try to answer this question. Let's answer this question together. I'm sure some of you have already eaten dinner, or maybe, well, maybe not, because some are in the desert, and it's still in the afternoon for them. Maybe. What's your favorite dinner? Uy, dinner reveal. What's your favorite dinner? Hala, ang daming pinagpipilian. Pick one. Pick one. What's your favorite dinner? Adobo chicken. Nax, nationalistic, how patriotic. No? Sure, let's work with adobo dinner. Ano to? Why do you like adobo? Why do you like adobo chicken? Si beyond grateful, adobong baboy. Adobo is life. Steak beef, Bokolan. Ayan, Christine, Maigret, Manlunas, Pagaduan. Tofu sisig. Approved. No, yan na lang gamitin natin kasi I'm vegan. Let's use tofu sisig. Okay. So, let's Kristen Nova sinigang. I also love sinigang. Pero tofu sisig tayo. So, maybe this is what you're going to be hearing in the audio. Pay attention, huh? Oh, what's dining ding? Lizelle LH Madamba. What's that? Justin Mongo. That's nice. What's dining ding? Anyway, can you someone explain to me what dining ding is while I type it? Oh, Nix explained. It's a veggie mix with soup base. Dining ding. Okay, now I know. Thank you. Thank you. Gulay ba? Sorry naman. Sorry naman. It's Ilocano food. Okay. K akende. Butter steak, tofu sisig, sinigang na pork, penne pesto, ginatang kalabasa, and many more. Wow! Nang gutom pala to. Yes, food stream, no? Diet session po tayo. Yeah, saya-saya. It's an Ilocano food also called Inabraw? Yeah, sige. Magkwentuhan na lang tayo ng pagkain, wag na tayo mag-aral. Dinner time naman, di ba? Lol. Charot. No. All right. So for example, this is a transcript of like, oh wait, let's change the color. So for example, this is the transcript of like the audio. Wow. Though Philip has lots of dishes that he likes having at night, such as lentil stews and curries, he was forced to have tofu sisig when he visited Ralph last night, which he didn't like so much since it wasn't crisp and flavorful at all. So, what is the first dish that you encounter here? Classmates, what is the first dish that you encounter here? Oh wait, I'm sorry. Dire-diretso pa rin yung explanation kung ano yung dinengdeng. Sige, tayo natin. Christopher Bautista Kakananda. Mixture of vegetables like string beans, eggplant, saluyot, bamboo shoot, boiled on water with bagoong sauce and topped with either fried or grilled milkfish, tilapia. In other words, Rowena Alimorong Valdez said, dinengdeng in Tagalog, bulang lang. Mag-share na lang tayo ng mga recipes natin, no? Since nandito na rin tayo at I'm sure gutom ka na rin, diba? Saya-saya. Anyway, sorry, going back to the question. What is the first dish that you see here? Lentil stews. Correct. Correct. Wait. Lentil stews. What is the second word what is the second dish that you see here? Lol, okay, akin. Curries, indeed. And what's the third thing? What's the third dish that you see here? What's the third dish that you see here? What's the third dish that you see here? Tofu sisig. Liza and Nix and Jess. Right. Classmates, what's the answer? 1, 2, or 3? Classmates, what's the answer? 1, 2, or 3? Classmates, hello, what's the answer? 1, 2, or 3? 3. Okay. How do you know? How do you know? How come? I know it sounds simple, but can you explain to me? How come the answer is 3, tofu sisig, and not lentil stews and curries? I know it sounds simple, but can you explain to me why tofu sisig yung sagot? Forced to have? Don Verbriones, what does forced to have to do though with that? No? Ninzi says last night. Very good. Very good. Itong si last night, pay attention. Pay attention. Ito yung punchline. Wait. Itong si last night. This matches with which of the keywords in the question? No. It's not he was forced to. Very good, Crystal. It was indicated that he had it last night. Itong si did. Very good. What did Philip have for dinner? So here we're talking about something that was recent and it happened in the past. Lentil stews and curries, it's something that happens in the present. So we know that this is not what we are looking for. Unfortunately, in the Ielts, and in the OET as well, it's very common for the exam to try to trick you. One of our keywords is dinner, and then they give you a match for this keyword, but that's not the answer. If you were not paying attention to the sentence, to the way that the message was communicated, you were just focused on matching dinner. What's the first dish that you see here? What is the first dish that you see here? lentil stews. Somebody who is distracted, somebody who isn't paying attention, that would be their answer. It happens all the time. It happens all the time. So this really means that parang kulang tayo sa keywords. It's like we didn't uh, include enough keywords in our initial highlighting. We highlighted Philip, that's true. We highlighted dinner, that's true. But if that is the only analysis that if that is the only things we would be paying attention to, hala, oh, Philip, dinner, our answer would be lentil stews, and it's wrong. So, cannot be, right? So let's go back to the question. What other keywords here do you think should we have highlighted? Did, oops, sorry. Did. Yeah, so we know that this in the past tense. This is something that happened, that has just happened. So therefore, we would be able to match. Dun, 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 dun. Philip did last night's dinner. Boom. Tofu sisig. Himay-himayin yung question. In English, make sure that you are very meticulous, that you pay a lot of attention to highlighting the keywords, because this is how you know what the correct answer is. Are you with me so far? Classmates, are you with me? Any questions? Anything that you'd like to clarify at this point? Anything at all? Okay. You don't have questions, but it's actually pretty helpful for you to get practice in making questions. Let's have an exercise. Diba, in the exam, you're given questions first, and then you have to listen to something, and then you have to answer. Let's do it the other way around. We would be listening to TED Talk. TED Talk is, by the way, a very good resource where you get exposed not only to good ideas, but also usually pretty good English as well. It's a great example of opinions being expressed at length with justifications, evidence, etc. So tonight we would be listening to a TED Talk, to a TED Talk, a part of a TED Talk. Now, your job, classmates, is to pay attention to the TED Talk. That's true. But your job is to write at least one question for somebody who would be listening to the audio. Gawa ka ng question. So pakinggan mo so habang nakikinig ka, while you're listening, you're coming up with a question or two or three, up to you, how many questions you want to make up, what you want to come up with, but at least one, please. Gagawa tayo ng exam. We're gonna create a test for this audio. Let us see whether you would be using the keywords in your questions so that somebody who would be preparing to take your test can prepare for the audio. Let's try it out. So what's your job? Write a question. What's your job? Write a question. Write at least one question. But later, hihingin ko niyan. I am going to ask for this question from you. Are you ready to start? Classmates, are you ready to start? Classmates, are you ready to start? Yes. Okay. Shall we? At least one question na masasagot. Let's listen to the first 5 minutes of the talk.
So I'll start with this. A couple of years ago, an event planner called me because I was going to do a speaking event. And she called and she said, I'm really struggling with how to write about you on the little flyer. I thought, well, what's the struggle? And she said, well, I saw you speak and I'm going to call you a researcher, I think, but I'm afraid if I call you a researcher, no one will come because they'll think you're boring and irrelevant. And it's like, okay. And she said, so, but the thing I liked about your talk is, you're a storyteller. So I think what I'll do is just call you a storyteller. And of course, the academic.
I think I did it the other way around. There wasn't supposed to be any video, only audio. So let's try that again. One more time. One more time. Your audio.
So I'll start with this. A couple of years ago, an event planner called me because I was going to do a speaking
Your
event.
audio.
And she called and she said, I'm really struggling with how to write about you on the little flyer. And I thought, well, what's the struggle? And she said, well, I saw you speak and I.
Was there audio? Was there audio? Was there audio? Yes. Okay. Come up with at least one question, please.
I'm going to call you a researcher, I think, but I'm afraid if I call you a researcher, no one will come because they'll think you're boring and irrelevant. And it's like, okay. And she said, so, but the thing I liked about your talk is, you're a storyteller. So I think what I'll do is just call you a storyteller. And of course, the academic, insecure part of me was like, you're going to call me a what? And she said, I'm going to call you a storyteller. And I was like, oh, why not Magic Pixie? Let me think about this for a second. And so I tried to call deep on my courage. And I thought, I am a storyteller. I'm a qualitative researcher. I collect stories. That's what I do. And maybe stories are just data with a soul, and maybe I'm just a storyteller. So I said, you know what? Why don't you just say I'm a researcher storyteller? And she went, there's no such thing. So I'm a researcher storyteller. And I'm going to talk to you today. We're talking about expanding perception. And so I want to talk to you and tell some stories about a piece of my research that fundamentally expanded my perception and really actually changed the way that I live and love and work and parent. And this is where my story starts. When I was a young researcher, doctoral student, my first year, I had a research professor who said to us, here's the thing. If you cannot measure it, it does not exist. And I thought he was just sweet talking me. I was like, really? And he's like, absolutely. So you have to understand that I have a bachelor's in social work, a master's in social work, and I was getting my PhD in social work. So my entire academic career was surrounded by people who kind of believed in the life's messy, love it, and I'm more the life's messy, clean it up, organize it, and put it into a bento box. And so to think that I had found my way to found a career that takes me, really one of the big sayings in social work is lean into the discomfort of the work. And I'm like, knock discomfort upside the head and move it over and get all A's. That was my mantra. So I was very excited about this. And so I thought, you know what, this is the career for me, because I am interested in some messy topics, but I want to be able to make them not messy. I want to understand them. I want to hack into these things that I know are important and lay the code out for everyone to see. So where I started was with connection, because by the time you're a social worker for 10 years, what you realize is that connection is why we're here. It's what gives purpose and meaning to our lives. This is what it's all about. It doesn't matter whether you talk to people who work in social justice and mental health and abuse and neglect. What we know is that connection, the ability to feel connected, is neurobiologically, that's how we're wired. It's why we're here. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to start with connection. Well, that situation where you get an evaluation from your boss and she tells you 37 things that you do really awesome and one thing that you can't, an opportunity for growth. All you can think about is that opportunity for growth, right? Well, apparently this is the way my work went as well, because when you ask people about love, they tell you about heartbreak. When you ask people about belonging, they'll tell you their most excruciating experiences of being excluded. And when you ask people about connection, the stories they told me were about disconnection. So very quickly, really about 6 weeks into this research, I ran into this unnamed thing that absolutely unraveled connection in a way that I didn't understand or had never seen. And so I pulled back out of the research and thought, I need to figure out what this is. And it turned out to be shame. And shame is really easily understood as the fear of disconnection. Is there something about me that if other people know it or see it, that I won't be worthy of connection? The things I can tell you about it, it's universal. We all have it. The only people who don't experience shame have no capacity for human empathy or connection.
Okay. Questions, please. Let's have questions. Lindsay. What gives purpose, meaning in life? Sure. Bocalan, Florence. What is her job? 3. Christopher Bautista Cacananta. What did she learn being a social worker for a decade? What topics? Justin Hoffertam. What topics is she interested in? Midlin and Christelle both say, what do people tell when asked about love? Oh. 6. Ada. What she did with her first career? Not sure about that question. What she did? What did she do? I think is a clearer question. What did she do with her first career? The rest of you. Sarah Jane Servida. What did she prefer to be called? 8. Reina Rabbe Villamin. What is the difference between storyteller and researcher? 9. Last 2 questions. What is the main topic? That's nice. That the speaker wants to focus on. Finally, 10. What is the fear of connection? I think some of these questions are very similar. Give me a moment. Okay. Oops, sorry. Let's highlight the keywords. Job. Oops, sorry. Job. Prefer to be called. Difference between storyteller and researcher. What did she learn? Being a social worker for a decade. Let's listen again to the first part of the talk, and let's see whether we can answer questions 1 to 4. Again, what is her job? What does she prefer to be called? What is the difference between a storyteller and researcher? And what did she learn being a social worker for a decade? Let's listen.
Called me because I was. So I'll start with this. A couple of years ago, an event planner called me because I was going to do a speaking event. She called and she said, I'm really struggling with how to write about you on the little flyer. And I thought, well, what's the struggle? And she said, well, I saw you speak and I'm going to call you a researcher, I think, but I'm afraid if I call you a researcher, no one will come because they'll think you're boring and irrelevant. And I was like, okay. And she said, but the thing I liked about your talk is, you're a storyteller. So I think what I'll do is just call you a storyteller. And of course, the academic insecure part of me was like, you're going to call me a what? And she said, I'm going to call you a storyteller. And I was like, oh, why not Magic Pixie? I was like, I don't, let me think about this for a second. And so I tried to call deep on my courage. And I thought, I am a storyteller. I'm a qualitative researcher. I collect stories. That's what I do. And maybe stories are just data with a soul, and maybe I'm just a storyteller. So I said, you know what? Why don't you just say I'm a researcher storyteller? And she went, there's no such thing. So I'm a researcher storyteller. And I'm going to talk to you today.
Thank you. What's our answer for number 1? What's her job? After all that discussion with terminology, anong trabaho niya? That's our first question. What's her job? Classmates, what's her job? What's her answer here? Marky says researcher storyteller. Sarah Jane Servida says social worker. Have we heard social work though? She's a qualitative. She's a researcher. She's a qualitative researcher. Hmm. Question. What we haven't heard social work yet, but is she? Is there a difference between question number one and question number two? Yes or no? Is there a difference between question number one and question number two? Yes or no? Is there a difference between question number one and question number two? Yes or no? What is her job versus what did she prefer to be called? Is there a difference between the two? Yes or no? What do you think? Aika says yes, there is a difference. So does Crystal. I agree. No? There is a difference. Job, trabaho niya mismo. What she preferred to be called is not necessarily her job. Diba? Not necessarily her job. So, ulitin natin. Let's listen to the recording again.
And of course, the academic, insecure part of me was like, "You're going to call me a what?" And she said, "I'm going to call you a storyteller." And I was like, "Oh, why not Magic Pixie?" I was like, I don't, let me think about this for a second. And so I tried to call deep on my courage. And I thought, I am a storyteller. I'm a qualitative researcher. I collect stories. That's what I do. And maybe stories are just data with a soul, and maybe I'm just a storyteller. So I said, "You know what? Why don't you just say I'm a researcher storyteller?" And she went,
Did you hear that? Why don't you just say that I am a... Did you hear that quote? Why don't you just say that I am? Why don't you just say that I am? Would you say that that is a paraphrase of prefers to be called? Did you hear that? Why don't you just say that I am? Isn't that more or less the same as prefer to be called? Right? Which is not necessarily her job. And I think this is where researcher, what was that? Storyteller. Yeah. What we are examining here is precision when it comes to language. There's a difference between job and there's a difference between preference to be called. Now, 3. Let's see whether we can answer 3. What is the difference between, storyteller and researcher? Did she ever give any explanation? So far, has she given any explanation between the difference between a storyteller and a researcher? Anong binigay niya? What did she give? Difference or similarity? What did she explain? How did she present it between yung si storyteller and researcher? Difference or similarity? Academic, Christine? Sige. Let's listen to it one more time. Researcher collecting data. Researcher is more on academic side. All right, let's listen to it one more time.
So I'll start with this. A couple of years ago, an event planner called me because I was going to do a speaking event. And she called and she said, "I'm really struggling with how to write about you on the little flyer." And I thought, "Well, what's the struggle?" And she said, "Well, I saw you speak and I'm going to call you a researcher, I think, but I'm afraid if I call you a researcher, no one will come because they'll think you're boring and irrelevant." And I was like, "Okay." And she said, but the thing I liked about your talk is, you're a storyteller. So I think what I'll do is just call you a storyteller." And of course, the academic, insecure part of me was like, "You're going to call me a what?" And she said, "I'm going to call you a storyteller." And I was like, "Oh, why not Magic Pixie?" I was like, let me think about this for a second. And so I tried to call deep on my courage. And I thought,
So she was contrasting storyteller being informal, casual and researcher being formal and academic.
I am a storyteller. I'm a qualitative researcher. I collect stories. That's what I do. And maybe stories are just data with a soul, and maybe.
Did you hear that? Maybe stories are just data with soul. So, that seems to be her message, right? So, parang pareho lang. They are more or less the same. There's a greater similarity. So, what is your answer here? What is the difference between storyteller and researcher? What would your answer be? Meron bang difference? Did you hear the word difference? Parang wala, di ba? So maybe this question, the answer for this one may be, uh, what would be the difference? It's difficult to answer because our answer has to be exactly the words that she said. Have you heard her say anything regarding these things? Researcher is different from just being a storyteller of fantasies and fiction. That's true, Bocalan Florence. However, this is outside knowledge. Our answers have to be based on what the audio says. Is that clear, guys? Is that clear? Well, the IELTS is not a quiz. No? It's not a test of knowledge of yung mga bagay na alam mo kung saan saan, but rather a test of skill, your ability to listen well. So therefore, the content that you need to answer the question would be content that is already provided to you by the audio. Something to keep in mind. Story. Okay, there you go, Christopher. According to the audio, a storyteller that was a magic pixie, whereas a researcher was more academic. However, do you think that either magic pixie or academic would be a good answer here? Parang ang hirap ng question, di ba? It seems a little vague, and therefore it needs to be revised. Do you know how much the IELTS exam is? Does anyone know? I know it varies depending on where you are in the planet, which testing center you're going to be taking the exam with. But do you know around how much the exam is? Any ideas? Roughly 12,000 pesos. That's true. That's true. Bakit ang mahal? Why is it so expensive? Now, part of the reason why it's expensive is because you're paying the IELTS to come up with good questions so that you don't have vague questions like this. So, yeah, that's precisely the point, Christine. Qualitative research data is stories. Saudi Riyal ba yan, Heidi? 1,300 Saudi Riyals. Yeah, so there you go. 1,360 Saudi Riyals. They're in Saudi. Talaga? Wow! Roughly 20,000 pesos yung IELTS sa Saudi. Oh dear. No? Oh dear. Christelle, I agree with you. She did not actually differentiate both words, but instead collaborated it together. So, question 3 is probably not going to be a question that you would be asked. So, that's fine. That's fine. Oopsie. Sorry. Let's try again. What did she learn? Being a social worker for a decade. Aabangan natin yung keywords na social worker, decade, and learn. We're gonna wait for learn, social worker, and decade. Here we go.
Maybe I'm just a storyteller. So I said, you know what? Why don't you just say I'm a researcher storyteller? And she went, there's no such thing. So I'm a researcher storyteller. And I'm going to talk to you today. We're talking about expanding perception. And so I want to talk to you and tell some stories about a piece of my research that fundamentally expanded my perception and really actually changed the way that I live and love and work and parent. And this is where my story starts. When I was a young researcher, doctoral student, my first year, I had a research professor who said to us, here's the thing, if you cannot measure it, it does not exist. And I thought he was just sweet talking me. I was like, really? And he's like, absolutely. So you have to understand that I have a bachelor's in social work, a master's in social work, and I was getting my PhD in social work. So my entire academic career was surrounded by people who kind of believed in the life's messy, love it, and I'm more the life.
I have a question. Is she a social worker? I have a question. Is she a social worker? Yes or no? Is she a social worker? Yes or no? Sarah and Ada say yes. How about the rest of you? Christine says no, she's a student. Noel said no. Well, she was talking about the past event when she was a young doctoral student. So once upon a time, she was a student. However, she has a bachelor's in social work, a master's, and a PhD in social work. Social worker ba yun? I guess. Like, are there nurse researchers? Diba there are? There are nurse researchers. Are they nurses? Hindi sila nagjo-duty, they don't go practice in the hospital. But are they nurses? These nurse researchers? Yes, they are. Yes, they are. So I guess she is a social worker indeed. So we've heard social worker. What we're waiting for is decade. What did she learn? Decade. Let's listen.
Life's messy, clean it up, organize it, and put it into a bento box. And so to think that I had found my way, to found a career that takes me, really one of the big sayings in social work is lean into the discomfort of the work. And I'm like, knock discomfort upside the head and move it over and get all A's. That was my mantra. So I was very excited about this. And so I thought, you know what, this is the career for me because I am interested in some messy topics, but I want to be able to make them not messy. I want to understand them. I want to hack into these things that I know are important and lay the code out for everyone to see. So where I started was with connection, because by the time you're a social worker for 10 years, what you realize.
Here we go. You heard 10 years, right?
Is that connection is why we're here.
Okay, what's the answer? What did she learn being a social worker for a decade? What's the answer to number 4? Narinig natin yung 10 years. We know she's a social worker. We heard the word learn. What is the answer? We have been waiting for this for a long time. Connection, just the word connection. Connection is important. Let's listen to the action. Okay, connection. Oops, reframe almost there, but not quite. Careful. Okay, let's listen. Christelle, almost, but not quite. So yeah, let's listen to it again. Oh, okay. Someone got it. Heidi Khalil Paningbatan in Facebook got it. The answer is connection, singular. Connection is why we are here. In the Ielts test, are you supposed to be, for Ielts listening, are you supposed to be copying the answer word for word from the audio? In the Ielts, are you supposed to be copying word for word from the audio? Ada, do not send me direct messages. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Copy paste. No, yes, you are. No copy paste. No paraphrasing involved. No? So what you write, what you hear, must be what you write. Now here, in our example, The answer here is connection is why we are here. How many words is this? This is like 6 words. In the real test, the exam would not ask you um, to write down phrases. Do you know why? No? Because when you're writing down the answer, are you paying attention to the audio? When you are writing down the answer, are you paying attention to the audio? Are you still paying attention to the audio? Classmates? No, iPad says. Yeah, no, you're not. No, because when you're writing things down, that requires focus. Paying proper attention to the audio, that also requires focus. And you don't have infinite focus. You can only focus on one thing at a time. That's how the brain works. So the IELTS wishes to avoid long answers like this. Connection is why we are here. So long. It takes so much time to write down, and this means that that's such a long time you're not paying attention to what's going on with the speaker. At the same time, is it hard to remember 6 words? Classmates, mahirap bang tandaan yung 6 words? Is it difficult and challenging? Huh? Ano daw? To remember 6 words? Yes. I mean, I have difficulty. Or rather, it's cognitively more difficult. It's significantly more difficult yung remembering 6 words compared to remembering one or maybe two. So again, in the exam, you would not be asked this question. You would not be asked this question. Why? Because the answer is too long. Part of the reason why you are being asked, why you have to pay so much, is because of quality control. You're paying them so that the questions that you're asked are fair to you as much as possible. However, can we answer number 5? What is the main topic that the speaker wants to focus on? What would your answer here be? One word. Indeed, Heidi. What is the main topic that the speaker wants to focus on? Yeah, dyan papasok yung connection. Correct, Christine. Well done. Well done. Now, let's see what other keywords we have here. What gives purpose and meaning in life? Topics she is interested in. What do people tell when asked about love? Oh, so sad. What did she do with her first career? Fear of connection. Let's answer these questions.
It's what gives purpose and meaning to our lives. This is what it's all about. It doesn't matter whether you talk to people who work in social justice and mental health and abuse and neglect. What we know is that connection, the ability to feel connected, is neurobiologically, that's how we're wired. It's why we're here. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to start with connection. Well, you know that situation where you get an evaluation from your boss and she tells you 37 things that you do really awesome and one thing that you can't, an opportunity for growth. And all you can think about is that opportunity for growth, right? Well, apparently this is the way my work went as well, because when you ask people about love, they tell you about heartbreak. When you ask people about...
What's the answer? What's the answer to 8? What do people tell when asked about love? What is your answer here? Classmates, what is your answer? What do people tell when asked about love? Oops, Ephraim, almost there, but not quite. Heartbreak. Yeah, cool. Singular. Heartbreak. Good job. Correct, Christine, Heidi, Aika, Lexa. Let's continue.
Belonging, they'll tell you their most excruciating experiences of being excluded. And when you ask people about connection, the stories they told me were about disconnection. So very quickly, really about 6 weeks into this research, I ran into this unnamed thing that absolutely unraveled connection in a way that I didn't understand or had never seen. And so I pulled back out of the research and thought, I need to figure out what this is. And it turned out to be shame. And shame is really easily understood as the fear of disconnection. Is there something about...
Ano daw? What daw was the fear of connection? What daw is the fear of connection? What daw? Liza, please do not send direct messages so everyone can see your answers. Correct. No, no, not that. I mean, what is we're number 10 is what is the fear of connection? Shame. Well done. You got it. Got it. Oops, sorry. Got it.
me that if other people know it or see it, that I won't be worthy of connection?
Okay. So you see some of the questions. So you see some of the questions are a little vague. We did not hear keywords for them, not so much in the audio. So you're not going to be getting questions like that in your test. Okay. Oops, sorry. Oh, gosh. Anyway, I think I overestimated this. Let's continue listening.
The things I
Please do come up with a question as well.
can tell you about it, it's universal. We all have it. The only people who don't experience shame have no capacity for human empathy or connection. No one wants to talk about it, and the less you talk about it, the more you have it. What underpinned this shame, this I'm not good enough, which we all know that feeling. I'm not blank enough. I'm not thin enough, rich enough, beautiful enough, smart enough, promoted enough. The thing that underpinned this was excruciating vulnerability. This idea of, in order for connection to happen, we have to allow ourselves to be seen, really seen. And you know how I feel about vulnerability. I hate vulnerability. And so I thought, this is my chance to beat it back with my measuring stick. I'm going in, I'm going to figure this stuff out. I'm going to spend a year. I'm going to totally deconstruct shame. I'm going to understand how vulnerability works, and I'm going to outsmart it. So I was ready, and I was really excited. As you know, it's not going to turn out well. You know this. So I could tell you a lot about shame, but I'd have to borrow everyone else's time. But here's what I can tell you that it boils down to. And this may be one of the most important things that I've ever learned in the decade of doing this research. My 1 year has turned into 6 years, thousands of stories, hundreds of long interviews, focus groups. At one point, people were sending me journal pages and sending me their stories, thousands of pieces of data in 6 years. And I kind of got a handle on it. I kind of understood this is what shame is. This is how it works. I wrote a book. I published a theory, but something was not okay. And what it was is that if I roughly took the people I interviewed and divided them into people who really have a sense of worthiness, that's what this comes down to, a sense of worthiness. They have a strong sense of love and belonging. And folks who struggle for it, and folks who are always wondering if they're good enough. There was only one variable that separated the people who have a strong sense of love and belonging and the people who really struggle for it, and that was the people who have a strong sense of love and belonging believe they're worthy of love and belonging. That's it. They believe they're worthy. And to me, the hard part of the one thing that keeps us out of connection is our fear that we're not worthy of connection. was something that personally and professionally I felt like I needed to understand better. So what I did is I took all of the interviews where I saw worthiness, where I saw people living that way, and just looked at those. What do these people have in common? And I have a slight office supply addiction, but it's another talk. So I had a manila notebook, a manila folder, and I had a Sharpie. And I was like, what am I going to call this research? And the first words that came to my mind were wholehearted. These are kind of wholehearted people living from this deep sense of worthiness. So I wrote at the top of the manila folder, and I started looking at the data. In fact, I did it first in this in a 4-day, very intensive data analysis where I went back, pulled these interviews, pulled the stories, pulled the incidents. What's the theme? What's the pattern? My husband left town with the kids because I always go into this kind of Jackson Pollock crazy thing where I'm just like writing and going and kind of just in my researcher mode. And so here's what I found. What they had in common was a sense of courage. And I want to separate courage and bravery for you for a minute. Courage, the original definition of courage, when it first came into the English language, it's from the Latin word cur, meaning heart. And the original definition was to tell the story of who you are with your whole heart. And so these folks had, very simply, the courage to be imperfect. They had the compassion to be kind to themselves first and then to others, because as it turns out, we can't practice compassion with other people if we can't treat ourselves kindly. And the last was they had connection, and this was the hard part, as a result of authenticity. They were willing to let go of who they thought they should be in order to be who they were, which is, you have to absolutely do that for connection. The other thing that they had in common was this. They fully embraced vulnerability. They believed that what made them vulnerable made them beautiful. They didn't talk about vulnerability being comfortable, nor did they really talk about it being excruciating, as I had heard earlier in the shame interviewing. They just talked about it being necessary. They talked about the willingness to say, I love you first. The willingness to do something where there are no guarantees. The willingness to breathe through waiting for the doctor to call after your mammogram. They're willing to invest in a relationship that may or may not work out. They thought this was fundamental. I personally thought it was betrayal. I could not believe I had pledged allegiance to research, where our job, the definition of research is to control and predict, to study phenomenon for the explicit reason to control and predict. And now my mission to control and predict had turned up the answer that the way to live is with vulnerability and to stop controlling and predicting. This led to a little breakdown, which actually looked more like this. And it did. It led to I call it a breakdown. My therapist calls it a spiritual awakening. Spiritual awakening sounds better than breakdown, but I assure you it was a breakdown. And I had to put my data away and go find a therapist. Let me tell you something. You know who you are when you call your friends and say, I think I need to see somebody. Do you have any recommendations? Because about 5 of my friends are like, woo, I wouldn't want to be your therapist. Like, what does that mean? And they're like, I'm just saying, don't bring your measuring stick. Okay. So I found a therapist. My first meeting with her, Diana, I brought in my list of the way the wholehearted live. And I sat down and she said, how are you? And I said, I'm great. I'm okay. And she said, what's going on? And I said, and this is a therapist who sees therapists, because we have to go to those because their BS meters are good. And so I said, here's the thing, I'm struggling. And she said, what's the struggle? And I said, well, I have a vulnerability issue, and I know that vulnerability is kind of the core of shame and fear and our struggle for worthiness, but it appears that it's also the birthplace of joy, of creativity, of belonging, of love. And I think I have a problem, and I need some help. And I said, but here's the thing, no family stuff, no childhood shit. I just need some strategies. Thank you. So she goes like this. And then I said, it's bad, right? She said, it's neither good nor bad. It just is what it is. And I said, oh my God, this is gonna suck. And it did, and it didn't. And it took about a year. And you know how there are people that, like, when they realize that vulnerability and tenderness are important, that they kind of surrender and walk into it? A, that's not me. And B, I don't even hang out with people like that. For me, it was a year-long street fight. It was a slugfest. Vulnerability pushed, I pushed back. I lost the fight, but probably won my life back. And so then I went back into the research and spent the next couple of years really trying to understand what the wholehearted, what the choices they were making, and what are we doing with vulnerability? Why do we struggle with it so much? Am I alone in struggling with vulnerability? No. So this is what I learned. We numb vulnerability. When we're waiting for the call, it was funny. I sent something out on Twitter and on Facebook that says, how would you define vulnerability? What makes you feel vulnerable? And within an hour and a half, I had 150 responses. Because I wanted to know, what's out there. Having to ask my husband for help because I'm sick and we're newly married. Initiating sex with my husband, initiating sex with my wife. Being turned down, asking someone out. Waiting for the doctor to call back, getting laid off, laying off people. This is the world we live in. We live in a vulnerable world. And one of the ways we deal with it is we numb vulnerability. And I think there's evidence, and it's not the only reason this evidence exists, but I think that it's a huge cause. We are the most in debt, obese, addicted, and medicated adult cohort in US history. The problem is, and I learned this from the research, that you cannot selectively numb emotion. You can't say, here's the bad stuff. Here's vulnerability, here's grief, here's shame, here's fear, here's disappointment. I don't want to feel these. I'm going to have a couple of beers and a banana nut muffin. I don't want to feel these. And I know that's knowing laughter. I hack into your lives for a living. I know that's God. You can't numb those hard feelings without numbing the other affects or emotions. You cannot selectively numb. So when we numb those, we numb joy. We numb gratitude. We numb happiness. And then we are miserable and we are looking for purpose and meaning. And then we feel vulnerable. So then we have a couple of beers and a banana nut muffin. And it becomes this dangerous cycle. One of the things that I think that we need to think about is why and how we numb. And it doesn't just have to be addiction. The other thing we do is we make everything that's uncertain certain. Religion has gone from a belief in faith and mystery to certainty. I'm right, you're wrong, shut up. That's it. Just certain. The more afraid we are, the more vulnerable we are, the more afraid we are. This is what politics looks like today. There's no discourse anymore. There's no conversation. There's just blame. You know how blame is described in the research? A way to discharge pain and discomfort. We perfect If there's anyone who wants their life to look like this, it would be me. But it doesn't work, because what we do is we take fat from our butts and put it in our cheeks, which just, I hope in 100 years people will look back and go, wow. And we perfect, most dangerously, our children. Let me tell you what we think about children. They're hardwired for struggle when they get here. When you hold those perfect little babies in your hand, our job is not to say, look at her, she's perfect. My job is just to keep her perfect, make sure she makes the tennis team by 5th grade and Yale by 7th grade. That's not our job. Our job is to look and say, you know what? You're imperfect and you're wired for struggle, but you are worthy of love and belonging. That's our job. Show me a generation of kids raised like that, and we'll end the problems I think that we see today. We pretend that what we do doesn't have an effect on people. We do that in our personal lives. We do that corporate, whether it's a bailout, an oil spill, a recall. We pretend like what we're doing doesn't have a huge impact on other people. I would say to companies, this is not our first rodeo, people. We just need you to be authentic and real and say, we're sorry, we'll fix it. But there's another way, and I'll leave you with this. This is what I have found: to let ourselves be seen, deeply seen, vulnerably seen. To love with our whole hearts, even though there's no guarantee. And that's really hard. And I can tell you as a parent, that's excruciatingly difficult. To practice gratitude and joy in those moments of kind of terror when we're wondering, can I love you this much? Can I believe in this as passionately? Can I be this fierce about this? Just to be able to stop, and instead of catastrophizing what might happen, to say, I'm just so grateful, because to feel this vulnerable means I'm alive. And the last, which I think is probably the most important, is to believe that we're enough. Because when we work from a place, I believe, that says, I'm enough, then we stop screaming and start listening. We're kinder and gentler to the people around us, and we're kinder and gentler to ourselves. That's all I have. Thank you.
You had to sustain your focus for the different parts of that presentation, right? She was presenting various ideas, various words, various opinions as well. And you had to not get distracted and be able to follow her train of thought. Given this, let's have a quick look at your questions. So kanina, the questions that you offered were like identification questions. Like, what is your job? What's the main topic? What is the fear of connection, etc. But now there are more ideas that are being that she was sharing. Could anyone share a question that they came up with? Can anyone share a question that they came up with? Can anyone share a question that they came up with? Anyone? She said quite a lot of good things, right? And what other term did her therapist, excuse me, what other term did her therapist call her breakdown? I think that was a spiritual awakening, if I remember correctly. What was her mission as a researcher? What other term? I'm sorry. What's the sense of worthiness? What is the core of shame and fear? These are good questions. No? Christopher, what did you call the research on people who believe they are worthy of connection? Yan ba yung ano? Yung the wholehearted? Was that it? Yeah. Now, my question here is, How long did she struggle with vulnerability? I think that was a year. She struggled for a year with her therapist, I think. What do they believe about being vulnerable, that it is uh, necessary, right? Ganyan. So hopefully this exercise that you and I went through tonight is something that you get inspired to do in your own free time. Maraming audio sa YouTube. TED Talks, mga ganyan, masustansya. The content is of very high quality. The English is of high quality as well. And you learn more things. Now, part of your schema, when we think of qualitative research, connection, shame, vulnerability, courage, measuring stick, yung mga ganyan. So you know that these words go together, and when you encounter them in the exam, you know that they would be activated because they're already part of your schema. Stories, yeah. Stories, emotions, feelings, crisis, therapists, no? These things, they went together here. And the more of these materials that you consume, the more enriched your schemas become, and the more chances of winning for your exam. Kasi when you activate the schema, the keywords in your questions, you have an easier time coming up with the answer, or rather, you have an easier time identifying the answers when you get them. At Niner, we have, and here, this group, you have at IFNG, you do have this community where, and Niner has these communities as well, where students share resources with one another. Some of our students, they hold study sessions together. Like they're all in Zoom, but they don't talk, but they're all just there. And it helps to motivate you and encourage you to continue studying, because it's sometimes very difficult for you to study on your own. It's nice when you have others to encourage and to motivate you. This exercise that we had tonight is something that some of the communities of Niner do. They listen together with they listen together sa isang video, and then they come up with questions, and then sagutan sila ng questions. O, diba? Tapos tatanungin, and then one student would ask, where do you find the answer to that? Was this mentioned? Etc. etc. And then they talk. It's great. Huh? It's a great exercise. And hopefully you would be able to find friends or fellow students to do that with here in this group too. So it's good to be here once again. Thank you, IFNG, for having us at Niner. And for the next few weeks, I believe that other lecturers from Niner would talk to you about other aspects of the listening test. It was good working with you tonight, guys. Hopefully you learned not only about keywords and schemas, but also about connection and vulnerability and being wholehearted. Take care. Bye. Good night.
Hello.
Yes. Goodbye.
Are good, sir?
Yes. Bye.
Thank you so much, Sir PHEELYP, and 9.09ers to Sir Irvin. Good night, everyone. Bye. Take care.